This is a Film Stories original podcast.
We made this.
Welcome back, everybody, to the X-Cast. As ever, the truth is in here. Thank you very much for joining me today. I'm Carl Sweeney, your host for this instalment of our special Fight the Future Minute podcast series, in which we are going through the Fight the Future film 1 minute at a time. And you are listening to our coverage of minute 10 of the film. And joining me today is Luke Winch. Hi, Luke.
Hello, Carl. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks. Minute 10, it's good to be hitting double figures, I think, isn't it? It feels like that's a milestone on this journey.
It is. We are making progress into the film very slowly.
Very slowly. I mean, I should have said, actually, this minute begins at 9 minutes, 0 seconds, as the helicopter that we saw at the end of the previous minute lands in North Texas. And this episode ends with the kid, Stevie. He's being loaded onto said helicopter, I think, by the end of this minute. All right, yeah. So this is... I mean, there's a couple of points in this one we could go into. What would you like to start with, Luke? What really struck you about this one?
I think you really get the first kind of conspiracy stroke syndicate involvement when, the foreman in the hazmat suits jump out with the quarantine chamber, which, by the way, apparently is called a bubble litter.
I was wondering about that, because I was thinking, how do I describe that? You're talking about, it's like the stretcher thing, is that
yeah.
what it is?
Well, I went on the X-Files fandom wiki earlier on, because I wanted to know what it was, what the official name, and apparently it's called a bubble litter.
Right, I'm going to write that down, just a sec. I need to remember that. Okay, so I guess the main progression in this minute, isn't it, is, those guys who turn up, isn't it? And we talked, haven't we, about the escalation. So from the kids playing innocently to actually something kind of scary is happening to, okay, they've got the grown-ups, the firemen are on the scene, and then these government operatives turn up, and it must be kind of unnerving. And we talked about, Miles Cools, didn't we, before?
Yes.
And, he must have been thinking, what on earth is going on? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think just at the end of the last minute we did... Calls and his men look at this helicopter and they do have a what the hell is going on look on their face. So they're wondering what this intrusion is, and these four men in white hazmat suits running out with with this bubble litter. A very unnerving and very confusing scene, I imagine, for everyone.
Well, I think also what adds to that though is because we meet Braunschweig, don't we? Played by Jeffrey DeMunn. And first of all, a couple of points we can make here, but he gets quite a nice intro, doesn't he, I think, where he kind of hops down from the helicopter. So he gets quite a nice introductory shot, I think, first of all.
He does, yeah, I like that. And it's quite reminiscent of, when, I think it's in Anasazi, when the shot of the smoking man hopping out of the helicopter as well. It's quite reminiscent of that. Yeah,
and I think what adds to that sense of unease that we were kind of talking about is later in this minute, doesn't he? He has kind of it's like a dawning realisation at one point. I think it's when he sees the kid being carried away. And I thought that was an effective moment, because it's like, well, these are the conspirators, and he's clearly a bit shaken by the implications of what he's seen. I liked that.
Yeah, absolutely. You get a kind of worry and fear in his face, but also, as you said, the realisation that I think he knows what this means, the implications of what's happened quite quickly. I also like... When the boy's been taken past him, Mark Snow gives us a little riff of the X-Files theme tune, that kind of dun. So it's a nice little musical touch to let us know, the audience know, that this is big and it's something to be scared about.
Yeah, and things are kind of ramping up, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So this actor who plays Braunschweig, so Jeffrey DeMunn. Now, previously we talked about Gary Grubbs, and we might mention him again in this minute. And I said that on IMDb, when you look at what he is most known for, Grubbs, it says The X-Files. But it's not the first thing that comes up for Jeffrey DeMunn. I mean, have you seen him in much else? Do you recognise him from other things besides The X-Files?
I do, and I'm wondering, is the first thing that comes up The Green Mile?
It is indeed,
yeah.
Because he's got a fairly sizable role there. He's actually been cast frequently by the director of that film, Frank Darabont.
Yes.
So he's also in The Shawshank Redemption, for instance. But the other things that come up on IMDb, the first 4 that come up are The Green Mile, The Mist, The Hitcher, and then the X-Files movie at 4. So it's still something that is clearly significant in his career. And he's still acting. It looks like he's on a show called Billions at the moment, which I'll confess I haven't seen that series. I don't even have a vague sense of what it's about. I don't know about you.
No, I'm with you on this one. I don't think I've even heard of it actually, or what it's about or anything.
There's just so much out there, isn't there? I mean, it's impossible to keep up, especially if you're like us and you just spend your whole time looking at sci-fi shows from like years gone by.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to point out about this minute, or one of them, is that I think Cools, he has one of my favourite lines of dialogue in the movie, and I think it's all to do with the delivery. Okay, I think you're laughing, so that suggests that you know where I'm going with this.
I believe I do.
Okay, I think he actually says it maybe twice. I don't know. It's I think the second usage is in the following minute, but we get the first utterance of "What about my men?"
Yeah, he's very concerned about his men, isn't he?
I think it's guilt, isn't it? Because he sent them down that hole, which, as we know, it turned out to be the wrong move.
Yeah.
So it must be kind of playing on his mind, I think.
Absolutely, but it is a great delivery, and that kind of Texan drawl adds to the adds to the delivery. It's fantastic.
I wonder if it reads, because I really like the moment, but it reads as semi-comic to us. At least it does to me. And I wonder if that's just a cultural thing. It might be that viewers from America just don't know why we think that's funny. I don't know.
I think you might be right, actually, yeah. It's something about the Texan drawl that, I don't know, that can sometimes be quite comical. And maybe some Americans in the more northern states might kind of find that as well. It'd be interesting to know what our fellow American Axcasters think.
Yeah, let us know. I think, I like I say, I really like the moment. I always remember it as well. It always stands out to me when I watch the film. Okay, so another thing I picked up from the commentaries on the Blu-ray that I've got is that, so when the helicopter arrives, they were using the crane to film the scene. And apparently, because there was so much dust around, when the helicopter comes in, all the dust that kind of whipped up killed the crane, is what they say. Kind of put it out of action. So it was a really great entrance, but it had it led to this logistical setback. And I don't know, I guess it just emphasises that filming outdoors or whatever, filming in the heat, it must just throw up all sorts of problems that you can't necessarily anticipate, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely, and particularly in those kind of dry, dusty environments. Interestingly enough, on a really quick side note, I rewatched Mad Max Fury Road last night, and I watched some of the documentaries afterwards, and the issues that they had with dust and wind made the whole filming process particularly grueling. So I think that with a helicopter whipping the dust and, as I say, killing the crane, must have been a very frustrating filming experience.
Okay, so I just wanted to... I mean, have you got anything else, any other notes about this minute that you wanted to flag up, Luke, actually?
I don't think so, actually. I think we covered everything. My last note is, what about my men? So, yeah, you got that one.
In which case, then, I can return to my facts about firefighters.
Oh, let's go.
Which we started last time. Okay, so this is from skysaver.com. We did the first 4. Okay, I'll just read this one then, because it's an interesting one. From 1603 until 1867, Japanese firefighters fought fires in a different kind of way. They wet themselves with hoses so they would be less flammable, which caused their uniforms to weigh up to 75 pounds. They used hooks on poles to try to pull the buildings down and smother the fire. They believed preventing the fire from spreading was more important than saving the burning structure itself. Only 5% of all recorded fires which happened in Japan for centuries resulted in death, seemingly proving their methods. So what do you make of that?
Only the Japanese would do that. That's crazy, isn't it? I have a particular interest in Japanese culture, and I'm reading a book about the history of Japan, but from a kind of environmental point of view as well. but I haven't got to that time era yet, so I'm wondering if that's going to be mentioned when we get to the 16 and 1800s. But it's quite an imaginative way of tackling a fire, and also quite commonsensical as well, I think, particularly in trying to stop the spread of it.
Yeah, I mean, if it gets results, I'm all for it. And it makes me wonder, though, what happened in 1867 that led to the change. So, yeah, let me know if anything comes up.
I will.
In the book, yeah. Okay, the reason that Dalmatians are the dog of choice for firefighters, it used to be that they got along well with horses. So, obviously, back in the day when firefighters used horse-drawn carriages. And now the Dalmatian has become more of a companion, apparently.
Yeah.
Right, Molly Williams was the first recorded woman to serve as a firefighter in an official capacity in New York City in 1815. She was also one of the first African Americans to serve as an official firefighter as well. Unfortunately, she was a slave to Benjamin Amar, who was associated with Oceanus Engine Company number 11. During the blizzard of 1818, there were very few male firefighters available due to influenza, and Molly stepped up and practically was doing all the work herself, trudging through the snow with the fire pump to emergencies. Nowadays, most firefighters are still men, and it says women account for just 4% of all firefighters. I don't know when this stat was updated, but let's assume that hasn't changed too much. That's pretty... it's interesting. I didn't realise it was so low.
Yeah, it's interesting and quite shocking, actually. That stat from about Molly. It was quite surprising to me that, first African-American woman... It happened so early in history. It was really, really interesting. I did watch a documentary on Netflix a while back, which was actually set in California, and it was about using female convicts to train them up to basically firefight as a kind of voluntary service, which was interesting. And they had the opportunity, if they became skilled enough, to actually join the fire force in an official capacity as well. So there's progress, but it's slow, isn't it?
Can you remember the name of that documentary? That sounds pretty fascinating.
Do you know what? I can't off my head, but I will look it up and I will I'll give it to you.
Yeah, no worries. So that does sound good. Okay, that's just the last one then. Is the number one again? And the ending on a downbeat note, but the number one killer of firefighters is heart attacks. Over 45% of firefighters who die while on duty die from heart-related issues. Firefighters are 12 times more likely to have a heart attack when putting out a fire than when they are performing duties not related to emergencies. So I guess it's one of those facts that I would have assumed that the biggest killer of firefighters was fire. So that surprised me.
Yeah, definitely. Does it say whether the heart attack is it stress-related or is it more physiological? Or does it not say?
It doesn't say, but because I'd assume that heart attack... I think I did a first aid course once, and I seem to remember the instructor saying that most heart attacks actually happen when people are, like, watching TV or doing something quite sedate, So the fact that it's happening whilst they're performing their duties suggests otherwise here, but I don't know. I don't know enough to say, really.
Yeah. Interesting, though.
Yeah. All right, Luke. Well, I guess we're about done here. But you're going to be back with me for one more outing on Fight the Future Minute, aren't you? Minute number 11 is coming up next time. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Yes, I think I've got a few things to talk about with that one.
Yeah, and one thing to look forward to, listeners, is we get the second utterance of "What about my men?"
with a lot more, kind of irritation.
Yeah. All right, Luke, so just quickly, what are your social media handles and stuff like that?
You can find me personally on Twitter at Luke_Winch. I'm also co-host of the Fringe podcast Observing the Pattern. You can find us on Twitter at the OTP podcast and also on Facebook under Observing the Pattern.
Great stuff. Cheers, Luke. And listeners, you can find the Xcast in the usual places, Twitter and Facebook, at the X_cast on Twitter, X-Files Basement, the Xcast podcast fan group on Facebook. That's it for this edition of Fight the Future Minute. So until our next episode, remember, as always, listeners, trust no one.
Previously on the We Made This Network. Pick a disc.
Particularly last night as well, I did a late night run to IKEA to get, because
I would imagine it's probably quite good running music.
Possibly, but I don't actually listen to music when I'm running.
Fair
I'm not my running dipped a lot.
Not run at all.
Yeah, but for the in terms of driving up the M5/M6,
Yeah.
it's atmospheric music. It's very atmospheric, like particularly if you're going at the speed limit.
You can't go at the speed limit on the M5.
You can.
Always roadworks. Actually, I haven't driven on it for ages because it's always roadworks. It might be clear now.
The Time Is Now, a Millennium podcast.
I remember Lance came by and picked me up to go to that. And as I was walking out to the car, we were meeting out at the car, and he saw someone's wallet. That somebody had lost their wallet. It was lying on the ground. And Lance, was ready to put the whole thing. I mean, we were. I think we might have even been kind of running late for this thing, and we really needed to get on the road and get downtown and get to this convention. But he picked it up, and he wasn't going to go until we could kind of figure out whose wallet it was and how to get it back to them and all of this. And he just, because he saw it, he took ownership of that moment.
Without a Mouse.
This week I have a very special guest. She is the co-host of the Tomorrowland Transit Authorities, one of my favourite podcasts, and she is also on YouTube with the channel Ivy Winter. It is Christine. Hello.
Hi, thank you for having me.
This episode's not going up till near the end of April.
Well, by that time I'll already been in Disney World, hopefully.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, we both will, because I'll be back by then, if the coronavirus hasn't closed the park down.
I think Mickey will persevere. I think we'll be all right.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.